Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rohit Kulkarni. I work as a senior consultant with the Frost and Sullivan's chemicals, materials, and food practice. I'm based out of Bombay. A very quick introduction on what we do at Frost. So we are essentially a growth consulting company. We undertake a lot of growth strategy projects where we essentially help companies grow. We help the kind of companies who are on a growth path, and specifically in chemicals. Within chemicals, we look at several sectors from petrochemicals to specialty chemicals, surfactants. Apart from that, we also look at materials, which is basically building materials, paints, coatings, and finally, we also look at foods, wherein we look at agrochemicals, agrobusiness, seeds, all of that. So that's a very quick introduction on what we do. Within this, so specifically today, I'm going to be giving you a very brief kind of like an overview on specialty chemicals in specifically in the home care sector, some of the key trends that we have witnessed globally, and also from an India standpoint, I want to focus on ethoxylates and surfactants that are used in specifically in home care end user applications, and just kind of look at where this industry is heading, from an India standpoint, and what are the growth drivers and where we essentially we expect to be in the next 5 years or so. So as I mentioned before, apart from say personal care and medical devices, packaging, household care, home care industry is something that we study in depth. Essential oils is something that the previous speaker very touched upon in depth. So essential oils, we also look at oleochemicals, flavors and fragrances, aerosol propellants, etc. So we pretty much cover the whole gamut of how whatever goes is typically in as an ingredient in household chemicals. And my focus for today is predominantly going to be for surfactants and how they are expected to be the growth driver in this segment. So if we see, the way this industry has essentially evolved over the past 70 to 80 years, and this probably has a big bearing with, where we stand, as from an India perspective, because this trend that I have provided is more global in nature. But if you were to look at where India is, you can observe that at every point we feel that we are at least 10 to 15 years behind where globally, it's like for example globally liquid detergents, they probably started taking off somewhere around the mid 90s, when they really went in, some sort of an ascendancy in the market, but that same trend of liquid detergents, we're probably seeing increased usage of it now in India, maybe in the past say 5 to 10 years when they have been introduced in the India market, but they are still concentrated, very very, I would say, predominantly in the metros, with some penetration probably in tier 1 and tier 2 cities. So India as a market, I would say I think are at least 10 to 15 years behind in the overall global growth story, I would say, but that also presents itself as an opportunity. So wherein we see Europe, North America, all the the evolved consumption centers, there we've seen this industry growing at 3-4% because they are evolved. But if you look at India, ethoxylates in general have been growing north of 8 to 9%, and I know there are a lot of you from ethoxylate manufacturing companies here, and it's a good place to be right now, considering we are in that growth path. So we've still not plateaued, we are still increasing. So overall it's a good place to be right now. This is, I think, something that I've already touched on. One again, another place that I want to probably touch base on, and this is something that I'm sure all of us have at some point of time. Whoever have been associated with the surfactants and the household ingredients industry, the role played by each and a lot of these entities within the value chain. So in this industry, we know for a fact that how the overall dependence on raw material. So one of the raw materials obviously being ethylene oxide, where most of the manufacturers as of this moment are reliant on RIL for their supply. Hence, manufacturing it can't really be an arbitrary decision where I just wake up one day and I decide to just because the demand is really really strong that I'm just going to go and expand my production. That's not possible. So it's important to recognize who the influencers are within the value chain. You look at the end use segments where these products are going. You look at the household products. Look at detergent manufacturers, I&I cleaning, all of these. The role played by distributors, traders is pretty high, considering the length and breadth of the country where these detergent manufacturers and all of the chemical, wherever these ingredients are used, the way they are spread. It's important for any manufacturer of these products to be really well aware of what role each and every part of the value chain plays, and ensure that they are catering to them pretty well. So when typically a company goes out and maps its customer strategy, how we are going to segment our customers, who are we going to target, who are we not going to target. Sometimes what we've observed as part of the strategies that we have tried to present to companies is that a lot of the times we ourselves as manufacturers sometimes are not aware of the role played by these intermediaries, if I can call them that. So I think for any company it's imperative that this whole chain is mapped out really well. So this is a snapshot of the surfactant market for household care in North America. I've just tried to touch base on this to just to show what essentially is going to be the key driver really. So if you can see, the non-ionic surfactants are expected to grow. They're expected to lead growth in North America, growing at about 5%. Similarly in Europe, I've not presented the chart here, but again in Europe we're expected to be the leading category, growing at about 4.5%. In the past, this has not been the story in India, because we are evolving, as I said, right now. So in the next 5 years, if you were to ask me what is expected in the next 5 years, we will see non-ionic surfactants led by ethoxylates to really drive growth, driven by two segments predominantly. One obviously being personal care, and second obviously being household care. Now when I specifically talk about the household care segment, I'm going to come to a few of those drivers that we will witness in India. But one of the key elements, one of the key drivers that we will see is the changing preferences of customers, especially in urban India. So we do see that if you look at the middle class, the upper middle class, somebody who's really driving consumption, especially in urban centers, with the Indian middle class expanding really fast, these household care chemicals are something that we are going to be really concentrating upon. Personal care, obviously, as again we evolve as a population, the amount of personal care products that we probably are using today, really I'm sure they're far higher than what we were maybe 10 years back. But household care surfactants and chemicals in general, those trends are again catching up a lot more now, even as compared to personal care, because the impact that they have is on the entire household. It is on something that we consume far more than even personal care items. So what typically the kind of detergents that we use, or kind of cleaning that is done even in industries, that is not only going to be even more evolved, but the amount of usage of these products is going to really kick on in the next 5 years. So our bet is that even though we, like any big manufacturer always keeps talking about personal care products, we feel that even home care products are something that probably will be right up there with personal care chemicals as well. So I'm just going to quickly touch base on some trends that we have observed globally and in India in the past. So obviously, as I said, the end use applications, they're widening. Consumption of high performing products, that keeps on increasing. We've got a expanding middle class. Liquid detergents continue to grow faster than powder detergents, even in India. Looking at the way this consumption is changing in urban India, it is expected to seep through to tier 1 and tier 2 India as well. Water consumption, obviously, I think something that is being driven all over India. We want to use less water, so we're obviously going to be looking at products that require less rinsing, that's low water consumption. And of course, the whole green part of it. So I think we spoke of green products coming in, green surfactants coming in. So even though we don't expect that to be really high in India in the next couple of years, but going ahead, that is certainly something that is expected to drive the market, because I don't think we can afford to be 5-10 years behind the whole the evolution curve, if I can call it that. Maybe that was okay 10 years back, but looking at the overall consumption of across products that we have now, I think we are far closer. That whole gap is bridging between us and say a North America or a Europe. So even though whenever somebody talks about green surfactants, everybody always says, oh no, that's still maybe not in India, maybe in North America, maybe in Europe, but not in India. But I don't think that's the case. I think going ahead, we will see increased adoption of these products in India as well. So some of the growth opportunities again, I won't take too long on these, but you look at multifunctional ingredients and especially excipients. So we are looking at a lot of companies here in India. If you look at the portfolios of a lot of these surfactant manufacturers, ethoxylate manufacturers, we've always been concentrating on mass products. We've always had this. I haven't called it a complaint, but we've always been associated with only mass products that have mass acceptance, and fair enough. We're looking at where the industry is, and how the fact that even within India, most of our high value item products are imported in household care, in personal care. We're not manufacturing them in India, but that's changing. So a lot of these, how do I put it? Some really niche areas in household care and personal care are now, these products are being manufactured in India and not directly being imported. So the requirement for the raw materials to be available in India is also going to increase, presenting itself as an opportunity for manufacturers to look at these products right now. Instead of looking at, oh, so I'm only going to manufacture say 80% that goes into mass products, at 20% I'll just import. But I think that will probably change going ahead, considering that even FMCG companies are manufacturing these products in India. Apart from that, I think somebody mentioned about synthetics as sustainable. Apart from just going green and all of that, we still see synthetic surfactants also, trying. I mean, companies are trying to make it more sustainable, safe, and kind of equivalent to natural ingredients. It's not always easy. It's not the easiest thing in the world to just one day just wake up and oh, we're going to go green. It's not possible. But what you can do is that within the synthetic surfactants or any other products that we are manufacturing, how can we as a company try and create less of an impact, an adversarial impact on the environment. So a lot of research, a lot of development, product development, R&D is going on globally at the moment. Maybe not so much in India, but again, that presents itself as an opportunity going ahead. Yeah, I think natural ingredients is something that I did touch base on. So even apart from household care, if I can just digress for a moment, you look at across categories, be it personal care, be it agrochemicals, be it any sort of areas where these ethoxylates, where these surfactants are used, we can see that going green and back to nature is something that is really picking up. So household care, again, chemicals, ingredients, excipients going into these products, we feel it will be something that catches on. And of course, industry consolidation. So this is again from an overall business standpoint. We've seen a lot of mergers and acquisitions, a lot of M&A deals up to about $2.5 billion that have globally gone in. So that's a lot of money being pumped in through acquisitions, through mergers. So this is typically, if you look at any business cycle, look at a lot of M&As going and a lot of acquisitions by larger companies. A sign of consolidation globally is always because they any specific company wants to really get a stranglehold of the market, or they really want to expand their portfolio, and rather than doing it organically, they prefer going out and acquiring someone. That typically has not happened in India, but again, any larger companies, the time is probably ripe. We look at the overall business environment right now, it's still conducive. It's not, we have grown as a nation over the past 4 or 5 years. You look at the overall kind of growth that we have seen across sectors. So any large companies looking for mergers and acquisitions, looking to consolidate their position in the market without having to spend on R&D, and this is especially in ethoxylates, where we know that there are a large number of manufacturers all in and around the Goa, Maharashtra region. So this is again another trend that we have observed in the market. So within India, again, this is something that I've touched on. Non-ionic surfactants is something that we expect to pick up. It's not, we have seen anionic, cationic surfactants in the past, but non-ionic surfactants are something that we really expect to take off in the next few years. They're going to be the key growth drivers. They're going to be the ones that are really going to propel the growth story. If I were to talk about the overall market, then we've got all of the larger players are already there in the market. So the India Glycols, Venus, Viswats, Galaxy Surfactants, all of these companies are there in the market for alcohol ethoxylates. We've got a good enough market. We've got raw material availability. Yes, I think from the standpoint of EO, obviously we are only dependent on one company, but dependence on some of the other products, some of the other raw material always exists. So that's another area where I think the questions have been raised. Okay, where do I get my alcohols from, my laurels, my cetals? Where do I get that from? So that again is a challenge, and that is a challenge that it's not very easy for someone to simply jump over and say that, oh, we're going to get from someone else. But that is something, this as a product, ethoxylates as a product, typically we've seen that manufacturers so far have been able to pass their prices on to the end user. They have been able to, even though the alcohol prices really took off a couple of years back, but that has not really affected their bottom lines or their top lines. That has only gone north. That has only gone up. So as I was saying, so detergents is right up there. It's going to be growing at about, we can say, around 9 odd %. So driven personal care also at around 6 to 9%. So these segments are going to drive growth. So in detergents, we've seen lauryl alcohol ethoxylates are preferred for detergent applications. And a lot of companies, at least the India-based companies, they offer products across levels of ethoxylation, right, from lower levels of ethoxylation to higher levels as well. So, here again, these specific molar quantities of ethoxylates are readily available with most players. But here is the opportunity probably for some players to look at those niche areas, to look at those really, really niche products. Something like an isotridecanol ethoxylate. It's just a sample that I have provided. Something like this is something like Sasol, something what Sasol makes. So again, this we've not seen, not really, it's not grown or it's not penetrated the India market as much as it probably should have. But some products like these are something that local manufacturers could and should probably be looking at, because of it also ties into what I said earlier. They are they find application across a lot of products. They are not as harmful to the environment as some of the other products, and at the same time the competitive scenario in India is conducive for such a product to make an entry into the market from an Indian plant. So I've just given one example, but apart from these, there are several other products that could be looked at by our manufacturers, by companies in India, and really expand their portfolio and also target these niche applications, these niche products. So finally, again, I think as I said earlier, green surfactants, synthetic surfactants. APAC is somebody who's we've seen a lot of increased purchasing power in APAC. So obviously the big constraint that we've seen, and this is where probably is the catch for India, is the high price. So which is again one of the reasons why I say that it's easier said than done, where we want to go ahead and really go big on green surfactants. So rather than going big on green surfactants, which are really expensive, so it'll be interesting to see how the market reacts to it. But if you can look at synthetic surfactants that are less harmful, synthetic surfactants that give somewhat the benefits of a green surfactant. So those areas are probably something that new companies can possibly target. So very quickly, if I can just summarize green surfactants, synthetic surfactants, I think I've already touched on. Innovation, especially for a country like India, is much the need of the hour. We need to look at those niche products, who we feel, even though they don't have the ready demand as of now, but can possibly be those demand drivers in the future. So we need to identify that. We as companies, obviously, we need to expand our horizons, go away from purely the mass products and look at some of the niche products. Focus segments, again, even within home care, we will look at I&I cleaning, we will look at typical detergents and those applications. So even within that, giving the customer or giving the FMCG companies tailor-made products to whatever degree possible, to tie up with these companies directly, to try and as I mentioned earlier, try and bypass some parts of the value chain, try and look at direct sales as much as it's feasible, look at some of these avenues, especially for smaller volume products, so that overall it has a beneficial impact on the company margins, and going ahead also gets you to expand your portfolio. And finally, I think there are obviously some restraints. As I said, raw material is, especially ethylene oxide, is a restraint. But I think something where if the manufacturers can really come together and give some sort of a have some sort of a dialogue with the government to try and understand if there can be various other sources for EO, other sources for some of the other raw materials like alcohols. So that is a line of dialogue that companies really need to come together as an association and probably explore the possibilities of getting something done, because that has obviously been an Achilles heel for surfactant manufacturers, but that's not something that can be it's not impossible to do it, as long as there is some sort of a will in a collective form from companies. So yeah, that's about it. So in case anybody wants to get in touch with me, you can just get in. I'll drop my cards here, and any queries, kindly shoot. What is that? Yeah, so no, what I meant was that when we speak of liquid detergents, their adoption of liquid detergents has been much before what we started on a mass scale. So if I have to give you ready products, I can give you. I have them now. It's not there in the presentation, but I can share some with you. Yeah, predominantly yes, because powdered form, I think, in terms of usage, in terms of it's not as beneficial, and it's very difficult for them to use. So typically, liquid detergents is something that is preferred in North America, in Europe, across applications, and that in India is coming up, but not to the degree that it has already been adopted in North America or Europe in the past. So I can give you a list of those specific products that are used. We have them with us. I can share them. Anything else? All right. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Kulkarni, for these rapid wrap-up of surfactant or ethoxylates in Indian and global market. As a token of appreciation, we would like to give you a certificate of planting trees in your name. With this speech, we come to the end of this seminar. We would meet tomorrow for other seminars. Thank you very much.